Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate it. So I am back from the ball. Michael and I had a fantastic time. There's some pictures in the community section. Members, I made you a video that's also in the community section. And I see that I have some new members. So just know that I will be posting all of the live events, the live videos that I do in the community tab in a day or two, okay? I decided not to do anything this Saturday where it's Mother's Day weekend, and I know a lot of people will be busy in a way and that sort of thing. So we'll do the Mediumship Circle the next Saturday, okay? All right, so we have a lot to cover today. Everything from Roe versus Wade to the special grand jury in Georgia that's, convening about how 45 was pressuring Georgia officials. Putin formally wanting to declare war on Ukraine on May 9th, possibly. So we'll take a look at that. The Alabama prisoner that escaped, allegedly with the help of the correction officer. And I wanted to take a look at her. I think that's probably the more interesting story. A lot of you have been asking me about rent control. I know here where I live, some people's rent has gone up by $600 a month. So something needs to happen, right? I mean, rent is out of control right now. And also take another look at China and the pandemic and how they've been handling it, and if there's going to be some improvement for those people. They've been going through a lot. At the end of the video, we'll do the 3-card pull using the Magic of Unicorns deck by Diana Cooper. So let's get right into it. So there's a special grand jury that's considering whether 45 interfered in election results because he pressured Georgia officials to overturn the 2020 election. So let's see what's going to come of that. All right, so what do we need to know, Spirit? Oh, okay, so I have a jumper. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a battle for him, right? And not getting a lot of support. So here we go. That's 7 of Wands. I know a lot of you like to know what they are. So 7 of Wands. Okay, so what else do we need to know about this grand jury? Okay. So this has a lot to do with his connections to other people. Here's the Lover's card. And so, this is about relationships, partnerships, contracts, things like that. And so I suspect those are the sort of things that we're going to be hearing. These calls that he made, text messages, emails, those sort of things. Any correspondence that he made with these Georgia officials to try to get them to overturn things. This is not good for him. This is not going to just simply go away. 45 is experiencing a time of transition and transformation, right? This is the Death card. And, it very rarely means a physical death, but, it is a time of transition and transformation. And I think, the 6 of Cups here is talking about how he wishes that he could go back to a simpler time, a time before all of this happened. I think he acted childishly. This is the only card that only has children on it. And he was naive to think that he could just call these people up and get his own way. Apparently, who's surprised, Ace of Pentacles, that there was some money involved. Money seems to be at the heart of politics, doesn't it? Especially when we read on the GOP and some of these things that are occurring. But at the end of the day, this is going to trap him. Here he is, 8 of Swords. From his perspective, and we've gotten this card a lot with him, where he feels victimized. He feels like a martyr, that sacrificial lamb, so to speak. So from his perspective, like his hands are tied and there's nothing he can do. Well, yeah, now it's too late, right? And if we go out one more, here he is, stressed, worried, anxious, the whole 9 yards. So, this isn't, I think, going to go well for him. I think they are going to uncover a lot of things, and that's the thing. If you put things in writing, if you can have track of phone calls and audio recordings and things like that, it's hard to backtrack, isn't it? So what's been on the news, all day today is that leaked Supreme Court draft suggesting Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned and it'll be left up to individual states. And it's being speculated that 20 states would take advantage of this immediately. So it's a couple of months away still from when it would actually happen. But let's take a look. Let's see what we need to know about this. The one thing I can say, because I do think there's going to be some shakeups with the Supreme Court coming, is that if it is the worst case scenario and it gets overturned, I'm going to say that it's temporary. That doesn't mean that there won't be damage done in the meantime and, that sort of thing. I'm not saying that, but I don't see it being long lasting. Okay, so what do we need to know? Okay. So I'm not surprised that we get the Hierophant. That's a very official, regulated sort of character, right? Governmental, judicial, he carries a lot of weight, a lot of power. So I'm not surprised that he pops up first. The Hierophant is also known as being a traditionalist and a conformist. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. People wanting to revert back to the old ways, the old days, that sort of thing. The obstacle, though, King of Pentacles, not being particularly grounded, I would think. And this could also be referring to there is money exchanging hands. This at the heart of this, just like with the last reading with 45, money seems to be at the heart of a lot of this. I think these lobbyists, these special interest groups, they throw a lot of money into these ordeals, don't they? It's interesting, though. It makes me wonder where we get the Two of Pentacles, and this card always has an international feel to me when reading on politicians, are there other countries getting involved? Because first of all, who did leak this? Who is behind this leak? It's sort of unprecedented. This isn't something that typically happens. And so this makes me feel like there's more hands in the pot than what we may be speculating, what we might be assuming, okay? This is obviously going to cause a lot of stress, worry, anxiety, sleepless nights. To go backwards in time is just unheard of. It's just terrible. For me, it's unimaginable. And then we get the Queen of Pentacles. Now, I find this rather optimistic. She's a queen, she's a mother, and she's very grounded. She is very down to earth. She's very practical and loving and nurturing. She's kind to animals, that sort of thing. So this makes me feel like, yeah, everything is ultimately going to be okay. The cards are not suggesting a huge shakeup. I can tell you that. So I would say before you get too worried about this, let's take a step back and watch it play out a bit. Because I think the outcome is going to be okay. I don't think it's going to have the desired effect. And if it does, it's not going to be for long. So, but I think this also, makes us maybe wonder if we should change how the Supreme Court is run. 9 people to control our whole country, and we don't even vote on these people. We're not even electing these people. And so hopefully this sparks a lot of good debate and, talks about change. So Putin is, now I think this is interesting because he has not formally declared war on Ukraine. So he is now saying that he is planning on it. And the date that everyone is speculating on is May 9th, which is Victory Day in Russia. And so let's see if he'll take it to the next level. Apparently that means he'll call in like his reserves and, you know, people like that. Go, I guess, even more full throttle than what he has been. But I mean, it's like, hasn't he wreaked enough damage? Even though I do sort of get something about July and him, and, you know, because first of all, he's running out of resources, right? So I don't see how this can carry on for too much longer, but I do get something with July. I do feel like July is an important month with this. Okay. So the first card, Queen of Cups, lots of emotions. You know, she's the queen of emotions, right? And so this is going to be an emotional ordeal, I think, no matter how you look at it. I mean, the people of Ukraine have been put through so much, haven't they? And to have him up the ante somehow even more is just unimaginable in my book. The obstacle, though, and I think we've seen this again and again with him, is that he's not getting the support from the international community. You know, those countries that I think he thought would step up and really help him, you know, move all this forward and support him. It's not happening. He is like this character alone on the hill, Seven of Wands. And so, you know, he's going at all of this alone. The next card, okay, so the next two cards are very interesting and hopeful. So look at this. So 10 of Cups, you know, here's a husband and wife, 2 children, the card of peace, love, and happiness. 4 of Wands, you know, husband and wife again, celebrating milestones and, you know, their wedding and a new home. And so, you know what? He's running out of steam. And I think it goes back to he's not getting the support that he needs to move this forward. I mean, matter of fact, he's running out of resources, isn't he? So, you know, plus, like I've said before, I don't think he's a healthy man by any means. So, this makes me feel very hopeful, very hopeful. So let's stay tuned on that one. So this is interesting. So there's an Alabama prisoner. His name is Casey White, and no relation to the corrections officer, who is Vicky White. Now, she has an unblemished record for 17 years. However, according to the inmates, they had like a romantic relationship, the two of them. Now, I mean, this man that escaped, he's a violent criminal. You know, he's not in there for something minor. He's literally in there for murder. And this isn't his first go around either. And he has had a previous escape. And he has also said if he was to ever escape, he would kill his ex-girlfriend. I mean, how terrifying is that? And so it appears that they have run off together. So let's look at Vicky White, this corrections officer, and see what is just going on with her. You know, to have this unblemished record, she has sold her house. She moved in with her mother, and according to her mother had no idea any of this was going on. And her mother even said, I didn't even realize she put in her paperwork for retirement. Her last day is supposed to be this Friday. So, you know, I think this is taking a lot of people by surprise that this happened. But, you know, it's amazing how you can go almost 20 years, you know, never doing anything wrong. And she broke protocol by being alone with him during the transport. And come to find out, there was no mental evaluation that she was taking him to. That was never scheduled. So it's an interesting story. But let's see, what is going on with Vicky White? Okay. All right, so I can't say I'm surprised looking at the cards. We get the Fool. And like I've said before, there's levels and layers to cards, right? Is this about her taking a leap of faith and trusting in the universe? No, I think it's more about her acting foolishly. She's doing something really dumb. Look at her obstacle though. 7 of Cups, the card of disillusionment, having your head in the clouds, not thinking and seeing clearly. The things inside of these cups aren't real. There's fairies and ghosts and castles and baubles. It's just a bunch of nonsense. She is feeling all kinds of emotions though, so I'm going to say she really does love this guy. And here's the thing. So she gets the Queen of Cups, but she also gets the Queen of Wands. So she loves him like passionately, like there's like this fire here. So there's lots of emotions, lots of passion, lots of fire. But at the same time, she's feeling burdened and oppressed. So I think whatever good feelings there were, they're going to come to an end. She is not going to be happy with her decisions, for sure. Page of Swords, she's in for a legal battle, right? This is my card for a legal battle. Here's the Page of Swords holding the sword of truth. And so this is going to become a legal issue. And, here she is just like walking away kind of dejectedly from all of this, from him, from the situation. But, I think at some point, especially where she had an unblemished record, she's going to come to her senses. It's too bad that it's taking her this long. Because, this is a dangerous person to have out in society, especially for that ex-girlfriend. I am certainly worried about her, and I can only imagine what the ex-girlfriend is feeling. I truly hope they've given her some kind of protection or something where, she can feel safe. But I suspect, Vicky's going to come to her senses. Let's take a look at the rent control. Are there going to be some, regulations, bills passed, something, because you can't just keep doing that to people, especially taking them by surprise. Like, okay, 1 month your rent is this price, the next month it's gone up hundreds of dollars. We're going to have a homelessness crisis more than what we already do. So let's take a look at rent control. I mean, something has to give. People need some relief. Okay. Well, people are certainly wishing and hoping for it, aren't they? The Star card. So I mean, this is a very hopeful card. It doesn't always deliver on its promises, but this is one of my cards for the US. So, I think we do need to be more in alignment. I mean, because people aren't just simply hoping and wishing. I mean, they need for these changes to happen, don't they? The obstacle is these judgment calls, right? So this is the judgment card. So this implies to me that this is going to be a legal issue. Like people are going to end up in court. Like it needs to go to higher courts, I believe, not just our local courts. But I mean, this needs to go to higher courts. But unfortunately, this card is in the obstacle position. The Death card. Let me see what card comes right after it. I'll take the next couple of cards and see, because I mean the Death card isn't necessarily bad, it's just transition and transformation. But then we do get the Devil, so greed, people feeling chained down, tied down, victimized. The 9 of Cups reversed, which when it's upright, it's great. He's the smug merchant, he's feeling all happy. But this could also be the landlords sort of losing their way too. But it definitely implies that there's a lot of discontentment. and people not being able to go to smoother waters, because if this card is upright, it's great, the Six of Swords, but when it's reversed, so I'm going to say it will happen. But once again, these are not fast moving cards. We got 2 reversals. We got the Devil. And then if I just look at what's on the bottom of the deck, the people are in for a fight. So I wish I had better news. I do think, like so many things, at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. But right now, not so great. So let's take a peek at China. I mean, I'm sure all of you know what's going on with, their lockdowns and the excessive precautions that they're taking. The people can't leave their apartments, and, the dog robots and the drones saying, don't give in to your soul's desire for freedom, and people going hungry and wailing at night. So let's see, is it going to get any better in China? And then we'll do the 3-card pull, okay? Is it going to get any better in China? Anytime soon. How about that? Because we know eventually it'll get better, right? But anytime soon. So first card, sort of like the card of retreat, withdrawal, pulling back, that sort of thing. But this can also be a card of introspection, reflection, meditation. So I'm going to say that the people are going to be in lockdown for a longer period of time, because unfortunately this is one of my cards for quarantine, lockdown, that sort of thing. But hopefully the Chinese government is thinking about this and thinking about what they're doing. Look at what the obstacle is. The people, their strength is being tested, right? Here's the strength card. So their strength, their courage, their patience is all being tested. Their very fortitude is being tested. And I think, 9 of Swords, this is how they're feeling: stressed, worried, anxious, depressed, sleepless nights. These people are being traumatized, aren't they? And then we get the King of Cups. He's the king of emotions over here. This is a highly emotional situation. These people are growing desperate. But to me, the Knight of Cups is actually a good card. I know people sometimes look at him as being negative. To me, he's a good card. To me, that cup is upright. It's full of opportunities and promises. And he's like that knight in shining armor. So I think things will get better eventually. But when I look at these cards, aren't they slow moving? We didn't get any quick moving cards. So I think they're in for this for a bit longer, unfortunately. So from the Magic of Unicorns deck here, I have picked 3 cards, and you just want to ask the universe, what message do you have for me today? What would be helpful for me to just carry as a thought for the day? So let's see. So I have 3 cards here, and I don't want you to intellectualize this. This isn't a conscious thing. This is a subconscious thing. You go with your gut. Which card do you feel drawn to? 1, 2, or 3? Okay, here we go. Card number 1. Manifest your dreams. And these cards are beautiful, by the way, if you ever get this deck. Focus on your vision. Seek satisfaction and contentment. So that's a really beautiful thought to carry with you today. Card number 2, open to abundance. Believe you deserve. So often people don't feel that they're worthy. That's all solar plexus chakra work, right? Believe you deserve. Accept plenty and prosperity. Yes, learn how to say thank you. Accept when something good comes to you. Stay in gratitude. And then Cosmic Pearl. I liked this one. It says, expand your psychic gifts. open the gate to the angelic realms, right? So you have to remember, you have to invite the angels in. So often we just expect them to, interfere with our lives, but unless it's like a life or death situation, they need to be invited because it's a free will planet that we live on. So invite the angels in, invite your spirit guides in. So, all right, everyone, it was a pleasure making this video for you. Please remember to like, subscribe, check out membership, leave a comment, say hello, and don't forget to check out the community tab often. Bye, everyone.